Hello, and welcome back to the Elemental I Ching. So today we're drinking in hexagram 38, the struggle, the opposition of life. And in the Gene Keys, it moves from that shadow of struggle to the gift of perseverance, to the city, the enlightened state of honor. And, even this project for me is a task of perseverance. Of can I keep making these videos to describe these keys as they come alive? And today is the lake with the fire burning on top of the lake, or rising as the lake sinks and spreads its waters. So struggle in this metaphor is desiring dissatisfaction. Where do we go out looking for a fight? Where do we go out looking for a fight in our relationships? Where do we go out looking for a fight against government or economic crisis or environmental change? Because struggle here is a necessary part of life. That opposition creates the friction that all of life learns from. Opposites are an important part of the colliding forces of nature, revealing more vitality. But how are we responding to that friction? If we're responding to that friction out of anger, out of fear, we create this dissatisfied longing for something else, for something better. And we respond and feed this cycle of struggle. And relationships are such an easy way to see that. Of if something is going wrong and I feel unrest and dissatisfied in a relationship, I might want to poke at it, I might want to fight it, I might want to run away from that fear of what that other person's going to say to me. Even making these videos is a big struggle for me because, I get other comments that aren't so nice. And those bad reflections, those negative feedbacks from the universe, they last in the taste longer than the good things in our relationships, right? One bad comment, one bad experience can last for days, months, can just linger, can make that swamp of the dissatisfied lake just thicker and more dense. And that's why the fire is here, to remind us about lightness, to remind us about burning that density into the clean air, into the passionate intent, into the virtue and honor. Because this is the warrior archetype, the warrior that doesn't fight others, but stands for something, that stands for love, even in the face of non-love, even in the face of rejection. It perseveres through the challenges, through the obstacles, using those obstacles, using that sandpaper of the grit of experience to harness even greater refinement. Temperance is not balance in the tarot temperance card, right? Balance. But it's not this wishy-washy, everything's in balance. To temper a sword of steel, it has to go from fire to water to fire to water. It goes through the extremes to harden something so pure. And then what do we use that sword for? Are we using it to attack our enemies? Or are we using it to defend the virtuous, honorable truth of love? So in our relationships, when those obstacles start grinding us, where does our breath? I notice where my breath gets locked up. And suddenly I'm no longer listening. I'm deaf to what is outside of me. I'm deaf to someone else's feelings. I'm deaf to someone else's expression of their needs and values. And suddenly I'm in a constricted space. And that's why the gift of perseverance is all about the breath. To take a pause and breathe at the height of conflict. Not even to think it through, right? It's not about feeding the story. To be at ease is not a story. It's not a thought, a mental framework that we take refuge in. It's a physical relaxation to allow ourselves to respond from the heart of truth instead of reacting out of fear or anger against something. So perseverance, the lightness that brings about true vitality, right? The making, not taking it so seriously when something goes wrong, not bypassing it either and being, defeatist and just, it's all messed up, and I can't do anything about it. There's taking that sovereignty, being sovereign and connecting yourself with your resources, with your values, with your truth, and trusting that heart's orientation, but not as a pointing at someone else to make them wrong, or transpersonal, to make my government wrong, make my economic system wrong, and fighting against that. I find myself, I lose a lot of my energy, a lot of my vitality when I'm trying to poke at something to make it change, instead of relaxing, breathing, becoming a more fluid conduit, right? So that lake, that stillness in the body, to breathe and come into that serenity, that ease. And ease doesn't mean you have to take someone else's wrongdoing, take it standing. It's still about persevering to the honorable qualities of life. To hold compassion for someone. For example, my leader here in this country, Donald Trump. I have compassion for that human who is hurt in some ways and is making some ridiculous decisions. But I don't have to stand for those decisions in a way that victimizes me. I can take a stand as a sovereign citizen of my own nation, as a sovereign citizen of this human planet, this human family, to raise that sword in defense of the virtues that I find true, and to find what is the fight that is worth fighting. It is the fight of love that is worth fighting. It is because we do seek that friction in life. We do seek that challenge, unconsciously. And it's important because I think I read in GK38, Richard spoke this beautiful line of that one of the fears of struggle is if we didn't have anything if the fight ends, if we don't have anything to fight for, we're afraid that we don't exist. So looking at that in my relationships and in our relationships, where are we actually subconsciously feeding off of the fights? Where are we subconsciously feeding off of the friction? Because it reminds us that we're alive. If I have an opinion and you have a different one, suddenly that individuation is validated, right? But sovereignty is at ease. It doesn't compromise its own values, but it recognizes that others have other values, other experiences, other perspectives. So I honor those perspectives. To honor someone where they're at. Honor in this is the rapture of bliss, to take all the sensations and the passionate intent and say, I can honor you exactly where you're at. And I will also honor the highest frequency of what we can be. To really stand for the highest elevation of our human family, to rise into that grace, into that beauty, into that truth. And I will stand for each of you for the highest of our heart's intent, for the highest blessings that we could be giving and sharing in this human family. I will stand for our humanity to rise up, and also honor where we're at in that alchemical process. This is a very alchemical key. It's that cauldron of the lake, of the still lake, and the fire, the opposition, the friction of the universe that's showing us where there is change happening, where we have to persevere through that cold winter heart, earth, into the spring, into the blossoming of our true nature. We have to persevere through the layers of concrete and conditioning that have been overlaid on top of this growth. We have to persevere to the sun, to the highest light of our being, to be fed and nourished by that truth. And we have to have that gusto, that strength, that warrior spirit to choose to burn the density, not out of fear or anger against that density, but use it as fuel. Use that darkness, enlighten ourselves from that fuel, from that density, and become these warriors of truth. Perseverance, it takes those qualities of stubbornness, of deafness, of aggression, that the struggle, the shadow, is going to use and play this game and fight back and forth in order to feel worthy, in order to feel validated. And perseverance pauses, has ease in the body, and then can use those qualities for its highest benefit. Richard was speaking something beautiful about how stubbornness can be used in a gift way as a fortitude, an endurance to outlast an opponent. How can we use that stubbornness towards love, towards a more harmonious relationship with nature? I think of the water protectors during Standing Rock and continuing, who stand for the water. Water as life, water is life, to stand for those values that mean the world to us. because others aren't taking that stand. So they showed up. And it taught me so much about how in my life can I make choices as a consumer, and voting, in sometimes in demonstrations and in actions, so we can use that aggression, that anger as fuel at the right time. Right? Not just acting out of that aggression constantly, being in this reactive tendency that feeds that fight, but also to use that power of anger to stand virtuously for that which does those that cannot pray for themselves. That's the beauty of being stewards of this garden planet. There are aspects that we are divine guardians of the loving nature around us. Let us stand strong for that. And deafness, that inability to hear the outside world, well, sometimes it can be channeled as a good way to be deaf to the negative propaganda that is that mass consciousness of fear that's trying to teach me to keep my fire just low. This is a time to burst forth with our true passionate intent, with our truth, and not against, yet not flaccid and left. I hope, I pray, I choose to cultivate my life to be able to stand for love, even in the face of non-love. And the heroes in our, and I think of Bernie Sanders, who just keeps persevering with these ideals that I resonate with, and the water protectors and the monks that are standing every day, cultivating for the highest love and compassion of all beings. Who are your heroes? Who are the valiant knights of love that you aspire to be in your life? Gather that round table of your highest heroes and embody that during this year, this fantastic, powerful year. I wanted to share one thing. My father, who is really deep in human design, and he was telling me about Ra and how funny it is that New Year's always falls in this key, in this gate of 38, in struggle. So New Year's resolutions have kind of a false start. It's like, well, of course you're gonna hit some struggles when you make a New Year's resolution on January 1st. It's a part of the blessing, right? And so we're about to move into 54, into aspiration. So I'm gonna cast my New Year's resolutions in aspiration. I'm gonna channel that into my highest aspirations. But even now, I'm on a cleanse. I'm doing more of my practice. I'm getting recalibrated to this new year. There's this perseverance of, okay, we've gone through struggle. Now, how are we gonna channel those resources into this new year? But I think my last little tip is to be kind to yourself if those New Year's resolutions seem to fall flat. Not to give up when the obstacle arises. Not to give up, because our desires, right, this fire of desire and longing, it's important. It's an important signifier. It's illuminating our pathways. So we need to know when we break those vows to ourselves, our oath, and how can we realign to a purpose greater than our individual desires and actually rise into that lightness, into that rapture, so that the vitality, the natural happiness of our life can flow, and that we can rise up and claim our tools, our magician's tools, the sword, the wand, the coin, and the cup, to understand and orient to the elements of our life, so that we can manifest that brilliant image of heaven on earth right here in practical daily concerns, in our relationships, in our work in the world, in our home and community, with our neighbors, with our culture, right? And into the governments and into the economic models and into environmental change and protection. And that's where real benefit will occur, because this is the virtuous path that is affirmed, that is aligned to an oath I take every day in my life. How I buy things out of the grocery store. Can I bring the consciousness, the lightness of clarity into my mind while I'm choosing what I'm choosing to vote with my money, what I'm choosing to put into my body, what I'm choosing to speak out to others. Because perseverance is not about saving someone else. It's about inspiring and empowering everyone to take a stand for their own true values, to find their competence, to find their sovereignty. And together we rise. Together we can become that army of enlightened love. You know, the victory that comes through the deepest surrender into the affirmed, aligned, loving pathway. That's my goals this year. That's my fiery, loving taste of this Jinky. I hope that you enjoy, and I hope that you bring about, you know, that honor in your life with your loved ones and with your enemies. Let's learn to honor our enemies as the friction, the creative friction that is going to bring about the most refined essence beyond what we would ever learn from the soft, easy, I'm in my tribe, I know my people, I feel safe. You know, it's important that we face those obstacles as opportunities for liberation, dynamic liberation. So many blessings to you today. Mwah.